Sawubona mame.
Yeah, Baba.
Yaphila.
In corner.
What language do you want to testify?
English, please.
In English. Very well. We're going to place you under oath. Would you want to do the affirmation or the conventional oath?
Whichever it is.
Do you swear that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, nothing but the truth? And if so, do raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Very well. Counsel.
Good morning, Mrs. Pumalo. Are you...
First, your full names, please. Could you place your full names on the record?
Christine Teresa Ngomal.
What is your relationship to Virginia Macapella?
Virginia is my sister.
Was Virginia at Life Esidimeni?
Yes, she was at Randfontein.
In front of you,
I'm sorry, Counsel, you went quickly. Virginia who?
Virginia Macapella.
Macapella. Thank you.
It's spelled M-A-C-H-P-E-L-A-H.
Thank you.
In front of you, you should have a photograph, and it is marked ELAH 32.
Yes.
Is Virginia in this photograph?
Yes, she is.
And who is with Virginia?
My son and my daughter.
When was this photograph taken?
It was in December 2015.
Where was it taken?
It was at Randfontein, at Life.
And did you take this photograph?
Yeah, I took it with my phone.
How long was Virginia at Life Esidimeni?
She was at Life just under 2 years.
And can you tell us a bit about Virginia's mental health condition?
In 2013, she got lost.
Was that 2 years from the beginning of the marathon project, or 2 years to when?
It was 2 years to the marathon.
To the marathon project.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
In 2013, she got lost in Kimberley because she stayed in Kimberley. And when we found her, a decision was made that she must come and live with me, because basically I was the only one who looked after her, because I used to help her and Shanice. So it was an easy option,
Who is Shanice?
Shanice is her daughter, Virginia's daughter. So she came to live with me, and when she was here, I took her to doctors, to clinics and stuff, but didn't get help. And then we took her to Charlotte Maclaike, and she was then kept there for observation, but she stayed there for about 3 months. And in that time, they were trying to find out what was wrong with her, because she'd never been diagnosed with anything prior to that. And that's when they told us that she has Alzheimer's. And it was a rare kind of Alzheimer's that was actually eating away at her brain cells. So basically, she was slowly becoming a child again. And then the doctors at Charlotte Maclaike told us that she needs to go to Life Randfontein. And the reason why it was that it was the best place that could actually look after her, because she needed 24-hour care.
So when was she admitted to Life Esidimeni?
She was admitted to Life, I think it was towards the end of 2013.
End of 2013,
Yeah.
and this photograph was taken December 2015.
Yes,
Was Virginia moved from Life Esidimeni?
she was moved with this Gauteng Marathon project.
Were you aware that she would be moved from Life Esidimeni?
Look, we were called in for a meeting in 2016. It was a public meeting, and in that meeting we were told that the facility will be closing. And from then we knew it was going to happen, but
Where was the meeting?
it was at the Randfontein facility.
At the facility, around from 10%.
Yes. And in that meeting we were told by Gauteng Department of Health that the facility will be closing.
Who was there as a representative of the Gauteng Department of Health?
We had Dr. Manamela, and we had the HOD Selobane.
And did you raise any concerns at that meeting?
Yes, we literally were screaming. Every family member that stood up protested. And what I think everybody's concern is that everybody who was at Life had been through the NGO process. So, and they knew that it doesn't work. So for them to then close the one facility or the facilities that actually work and send people back to the NGOs just it wasn't realistic.
And what was the reason that Dr. Manamela and Dr. Selebano provided to you, to the families, for the need to
In
move?
that particular meeting, they said it was because of finance. And my question, because I stood up and I said, if it is about finance, I mean, surely Life can actually assist because it was a long-term contract. Surely they could come up with figures that would make sense for them. And the gentleman from Life stood up and said, no, they've been open for negotiation right from the beginning, so it is not their fault.
Who was the representative of Life Esidimeni?
To be honest with you, I can't remember his name. I'd be lying to you.
And the only reason that was provided was financial
And
resources.
in that particular meeting, that was it, yeah.
And were you told which NGOs would be providing the services instead of Life Esidimeni?
The names of NGOs never came up at all. They just said NGOs. And they said some were ready to receive patients.
And so were you then informed that was the public meeting to inform all of the families that a move was imminent?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
So were you specifically informed then about your sister, about the move that was planned for your sister, for which date it was to take, on which date it was to take place and where?
No, I got an SMS on the 30th of June that said my sister was being moved to Cullinan and that the facility was closing that very day.
That Life Esidimeni was closing that day?
Yes.
When was the last time you saw your sister?
We actually saw her in May of that month, of that year.
In May 2016?
Yeah.
Who sent the SMS to you?
We don't know, Judge, because when there's a number that was provided there, but when you phone the number, you can't get through. We couldn't get through.
So you say that the SMS informed you that she would be moved to Cullinan Care and Rehabilitation Center.
Yes.
So did you call Cullinan to...
I called several times, and every time they would say she's not there. I think it took about 2.5 weeks just to get some kind of answer from somebody. I remember there was a white lady that answered at some point and said, I should try Siabadinga or I should try Anchor. And when I asked her what Siabadinga is and Anchor is, and she said there were the other NGOs on the facility.
So for 2.5 weeks, you were contacting Cullinan Care to try to locate
My
Virginia.
sister, yes.
And they told you to try those two NGOs, Siabadinga and Anchor. Did you contact those NGOs?
I did, but you never really got through on their telephone lines.
So how did you
I just kept phoning Cullinan, and eventually I got through to Daphne, who was, by the way, very rude on the phone. And I said to her, look, I was told she was sent to Cullinan, and I'm calling Cullinan, but I'm not getting any answers. So what's going on? And then she said to me that she is not here, and if anybody was to come through those doors, she would know, and she was not on their register.
She was not on the Cullinan
She
register.
was not on the Cullinan register.
So had she never been admitted to Cullinan?
Well, she didn't say that. She just said she was not on the register.
Did she tell you where she could possibly be,
No.
where your sister could
She
possibly
didn't
be?
volunteer any other options.
And on what date was this conversation?
To be honest with you, it was just in that period of 2 weeks from the date that I actually got the SMS.
So how did you find out where your sister had been moved to?
I didn't. I only found out later, I think after fighting with Daphne on the phone. And then she said to me, oh no, she was on the she's on the register. And then she gave me Dorothy's number, Dorothy from Anchor. And then Dorothy.
When was this?
It was in that space of trying to find, because I spent the whole of it was July and August. Sorry, I spent the whole of June just trying to trace Virginia. So it was in that space of July.
July 2016.
Yeah.
Well, can you tell us what happened next then?
Well, eventually, Daphne then said to me that she is in Cullinan. So towards the end of beginning August, we were actually supposed to see Virginia. And at that time, I had car problems, so I had to wait till end of August to go and see her. So I didn't get to see her.
Where was your sister?
Well, on the 25th of August, I got a call from Ethel, who said to
Ethel
me,
who?
Ethel Ngube. And she said to me that my sister had passed, and my sister had been with her for 6 weeks.
25th August 2016.
Yes.
And you say that she said your sister had been with her. Where exactly?
She said it's Precious Angels.
Did you then go to Precious Angels?
Well, immediately after she called, we drove to Outreachville. And I called her saying that we were coming. We drove to Outreachville. When we got there, we had to park outside of Kalafong waiting for her. And we kept calling her, but she never arrived.
She informed you of your sister's passing. Did she tell you on what date your sister had passed?
She said that she had passed away on the 17th of August.
So did you say you were outside Kalafong Hospital?
Yes. And we waited for her, and we called her because we wanted to obviously identify my sister and also just to see where she had passed.
So did you never actually visit Precious Angels?
No, she wouldn't. In that entire time, she would not give us the address or tell us where it was.
And how then did you... Where was Virginia if she was not at Kalafong? Or was she at Kalafong?
Well, according to Ethel, she was with her, and she had been for 6 weeks.
But once she passed away, was she taken to an undertaker?
She was taken to an undertaker called Put You to Rest, which has offices in Outreachville.
So is that where you went
No,
to
well,
locate her? How did you know she was at Put You to Rest?
Well, we didn't know, but that first day when we drove there, we never got to see Ethel. We never got any answers. So we had to go back the next day and the day after. And the second day, when we went to Outreachville, she had us waiting for, because we got there about 8 o'clock in the morning, and we waited till about 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
What
And
date was this?
this was on 27th of August. So we waited outside of Kalafong again, waiting for Ethel, and she never showed. But instead, the undertakers from Put You to Rest came to pick us up. Well, not pick us up, but we had to follow them to their facility. And when we got there, they just told us, well, they wanted to talk about funeral arrangements. And I said, but we can't do funeral arrangements when we haven't identified my sister yet.
And so did they tell you where Virginia's body was? Was it in their possession?
They said to me that they had to move her to Roslyn, which is not too far from Outreachville. So they said we could actually go and view her there.
Roslyn?
Roslyn, yes.
Who would have said that? Put you to rest people?
Yes, Put You to Rest people.
Mm-hmm.
So did you then travel to Roslyn?
Well, we followed the gentleman, but we didn't go to Roslyn. We actually went to a place called Hebron, which is quite a distance from, you actually had to pass Soshanguve to get to that place from Outreachville. So it was quite a distance from where we were.
Which province is Hebron in?
If I'm not mistaken, I think it falls under Northwest. I think it's part of Northwest. I'm not too sure. But it was quite a distance from Outreachville.
And there's a mortuary. You went to a mortuary in Hebron.
It's actually more like a storage facility. And that's where we actually got to identify my sister.
What do you mean it was like a storage facility?
No, they didn't do funeral services and stuff. They literally just stored bodies, I think, for other undertakers.
What was the name of the funeral home, the undertaker, the mortuary that you had to, where you had to identify Virginia's body?
I think it's Tokelo funerals or undertakers.
Cotello.
Kotelo, yes.
And did you then identify your sister's body?
Yes, I did.
Were you alone when you did this?
I was with my husband.
And were you able to secure the release of your sister into your custody?
No, I actually struggled to get my sister's body. I had to eventually, because it took me about 5 days just going back and forth. I ended up having to go to the police station, and I had to open a case. I had to do it, and ask them to assist me in terms of getting my sister's body.
What was the difficulty?
Well, between put you to rest, and I'm not too sure what the arrangements was with Precious Angels, but they were insisting that I do the funeral service with them. And when I said to them I can't, they would not, in essence, release the body. And I said to them, but I have to bury my sister in Kimberley, so how can I make funeral arrangements with them? And the only way they could actually allow me to, I had to ask them for a quote and said to them, we'll discuss it at home. And yeah, that's how I got them to, you know, just to agree to I don't know, because they wouldn't give me anything. And also the fact that Ethel, remember, my sister didn't have a death certificate as well. So that was also the other issue.
Did you have her ID?
No.
Virginia's ID?
No, I didn't have the ID.
Where was her ID?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I had to, try to phone Cullinan and Dr. Manamela. I had to, and Ethel, just trying to find out where my sister's ID was.
And was Dr. Manamela of assistance to you to try to locate Virginia's identity document so that you could get a death certificate?
Look, the only language that Dr. Manamela knew was if you screamed at her. And that was the only way I could actually get to her. I had to scream at her to say to her, look, I can't do anything with my sister. I can't even bury her or get a post-mortem done because she's got her ID. Because everybody said they don't have their ID. So the only thing I could do was to scream and shout at the Department of Health because I felt that they were responsible for this process.
There's some files next to you. Can you?
Sorry, how did that help? How was a death certificate produced ultimately?
Well, I had to...
Just, excuse me, take one step backward, please. You're doing a good job, but you're right in the line of sight with the witness. Sure, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Well, I had to ask the police to assist me because I had to open an inquest or open a case with the police station, and they had to then go and collect the body. The only way I could actually get the body from put you to rest was to go with the police. And the pathologist then had to come and collect the body while we were there with the police. So that was the only way we could actually get my sister's body.
Did put you to rest offer to do the burial
services
for nothing?
No. They wanted me to actually go through the process of paying them, and they do the service.
And where was the CEO of Precious Angels?
She was nowhere. I, in fact, spoke to her on the phone the day she called me, and then I think the next day, and then after that, it was just trying to get stuff from her or information from her. I never met her until the day she came to testify. That was literally the first time I saw her.
And did anybody certify your sister's cause of death? How was that done?
Well, when I spoke to Ethel, what had happened, she said to me that it was a natural death. But the only people who actually got to see my sister was the paramedics. So she literally was not, by a doctor, she was not seen. So other than the report from the paramedics, there was nothing else.
And in Hebron, how was your sister kept? Where?
Well, we only got to see her on the steel table. So as to how they store the bodies, I can't say.
Counsel.
Do you recall, you said that there was a quote that Put You to Rest provided for their services. Do you recall what their costs were?
To be honest with you, I didn't actually open it.
You didn't open it?
No, I didn't open it.
When you spoke to Ethel on the phone, Ethel Ngube, she called you to inform you of your sister's passing.
Yes,
So she had your contact details.
yes.
Did she explain to you why she called you so many days after your sister had passed?
She said she didn't have my contact details.
That she had, how did she get your contact details then?
She didn't explain how she got them then.
If you could open file 11, is it file 11? And turn to page 3781.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, and turn to?
Page 3781. You there?
Yes, I am.
Is this your sister's death certificate?
Yes, it is.
And you say you were able to eventually procure a death certificate with the assistance of the police.
Yes.
Which police station came to your assistance?
It was Atteridgeville Police Station.
On the death certificate, it cites the date of death as 15 August 2016. You earlier said that Ethel told you it was she passed away on 17 August 2016. Am I correct?
Yes.
But in fact, it was the 15th of August. This is clear from the death certificate.
It's the 15th of August because how I found the date of the 15th was on the paramedics report. I'm not too sure how they obviously determined that, but on the paramedics report it said the 15th and not the 17th.
It also says on the death certificate, as cause of death, that it is under investigation, and there's a case number, an SAPS case number.
Yes,
Has there been a post-mortem conducted?
there has been, yes.
Do you have the post-mortem report?
I have struggled to get the postmortem and I've never received it.
Were you informed what the findings were of the post-mortem?
Never.
But how do you know that the postmortem was performed?
Because I was
Did you look at your sister and see the postmortem scar?
Yes.
The middle of her chest?
Yes. Because we had to identify her before the undertakers could take her from Garankuwa Hospital. We had to identify her.
So before burial, you're quite certain there was a postmortem examination?
Yes.
If you can turn over the page to page 3782.
Well, before you leave the page, have you heard anything about the outcome of case number 648/08/2016?
No, sir.
No. This is more than a year ago,
Yes.
and you haven't heard from the police.
No.
Counsel?
Justice Masaneke, that is where I'm going now. It's 3782.
I see.
There's a letter It appears that this letter is written by yourself, Mrs. Nxumalo,
Yes,
to the police.
yes,
And the subject matter of the letter is report of death of Virginia Gwen Machpela in terms of the Inquest Act 58 of 1959. What made you write this letter to the police?
Well, because of the difficulty that I had, I mean, from the day I found out that she passed away till the day we fetched her with the police, I struggled. I struggled to get any answers from Ethel. And I think for me, the manner in which she acted kind of worried me, because if according to her, my sister died of natural causes, why was she being so? Because she was hiding. She wouldn't meet, she wouldn't discuss, she didn't offer any answers to us. And for me, that just said to me something was wrong. And obviously, we needed to find out what caused my sister's death, because clearly it was not as natural as she said it was.
Well, let's get there. This letter was written on the 27th of August 2016.
Yes.
And in paragraph 12 of the letter, you say that Ethel further advised me that a post-mortem assessment was conducted and my sister's death was found to be natural.
Yeah.
So when did she inform you that the post-mortem had taken place?
She told me on the phone the day when I drove to Kalafong. When we were on the phone talking to her, and she told me that she had done a post-mortem and that the death was natural. But when I got to put you to rest, the ladies there said to me she doesn't have any information on Virginia, and she doesn't have a death certificate, and nothing had been done for Virginia.
There had been no post-mortem conducted.
Yeah.
That was the first time in which you identified Virginia's body.
Yeah.
And there were no scars from a post-mortem, an autopsy
No.
at that point in time.
At that point, no.
Did you get a response to this letter from the police after 27 August?
Well, I had to literally go there every day to try and push them to do something.
And did they?
Well, the day when we went to go and fetch her was basically me going there, because I went there with my husband, my uncle, my cousin, to basically get them to do something. And it's only then that they actually drove with us to go and get my sister's body.
And that was to get her body from the Cotello funeral home?
Yes.
If you turn over the page to page 3785, there's another letter from you, is that correct?
Yes.
And it's dated 7 September 2016.
Yes.
And it's addressed to Warrant Officer Mokari.
Yes.
And it says, request for referral for inquest into deaths of residents at Precious Angels Home.
Yes.
So the first letter that we've just looked at was a request for an inquest into the death of your sister.
Yes.
This letter is for a request for inquest into deaths of other residents at Precious Angels. What made you write this letter?
The day when we went to fetch my sister with the police, as we were sitting and waiting for the pathologists to come through, the lady who owns Mrs. Cotello basically said that I was lucky that my sister had not been there for too long. And we asked her, what does she mean? And she said to me, no, there were 8 other bodies in their facility that also came from Precious Angels. And at that time, we were sitting with the warrant officers, but they didn't seem to react to what she had said.
If you look at paragraph 3 of your letter, it says, on arrival at the funeral home, Mrs. Cotello, the owner of the funeral home, advised us that there were 6 other bodies from Precious Angels. Was it 6 or 8?
It was actually 8 with my sister, and apparently there was a body that was cremated.
So 8 in total, 6
Yeah.
plus your sister 7
And
plus
plus the cremated body, yes.
So can you explain further? Okay, she informed you that there were other bodies.
Yes.
And that
That just freaked me out. It freaked me out because it meant that this thing was a lot bigger than what I had thought.
So you identify, we turn over the page to 3786.
Yes. Well, basically what I did, when I saw that the police were not reacting to this, I phoned Section 27 and I told them what I had just heard. And I said to them, we need to do something about this. We need to, and also I didn't want to cause panic. So I asked Section 27 as to what to do. And they actually said that they were going to send an investigator that very time while we were there. And as we left, the investigator came in and basically spoke to her and was able to get the names of the bodies that were there.
Was it a police officer who
No.
arrived to investigate?
No. It was someone from Section 27, somebody that they work with.
So the names in paragraph 7, are those the names of the other bodies that were at Cotello Funeral Home?
Yes.
How did you come to know of the names of the bodies?
It's the investigator from Section 27 that actually was able to get the names.
In your letter, you say that it appears in paragraph 10, the deaths appear to be connected to each other.
Yes.
And you request that the matter be referred for a joint inquest.
Yes, because I just thought if they coming from Precious Angels and they had been there for 2 months, surely there must be some link to my sisters.
And did you receive a response from the police to this letter?
Well, Captain from Atteridgeville said to me that he will speak to his superiors about it. And then he later called and said to me, no, his superior said that the MEC must request this inquest.
The MEC
Of Health, Qedani Mahlang. And I said to him, but how can the MEC request this where she is the cause of this? And he didn't have an answer for me.
Did anybody approach the MEC to ask her?
I don't think anybody did.
But did the captain ever write formally in response to this letter?
No, never did.
In response to the letter before this, did they respond formally?
No, they never
To
did.
neither of your letters did you get a written response from the SAPS?
No, I never did.
Do you know whether postmortems were conducted on the name in relation to the names listed in paragraph 7 of your letter?
To be honest with you, I don't know.
When was your sister laid to rest?
She was laid to rest on the 3rd of September.
And where?
She was later in Kimberley.
And you say that your sister had a daughter.
Yes, Shanice Makapel.
Were you ever able to establish how Virginia passed away?
No,
What happened immediately preceding her death, for example?
I don't know anything from the time she left life. I mean, there's nothing. I was hoping that when Ethel Ngube testified that we would get some answers, but no.
You say that the last time you saw your sister was in June
It was
2016.
it was in
Sorry,
May.
May 2016.
Yeah.
And what was her condition then when you visited her?
My sister was, when she was moved to life, she was forgetful. She didn't recognize us, and she wasn't able to she couldn't pronounce words or say anything. But the last time we saw her, she was able to laugh. She was actually very happy. And she even remembered old jokes that we had, that we used to, I suppose, tell each other. She was very, very joyful. And she was gaining weight. She was looking really healthy. And we actually were very happy when we saw her the last time. So,
And has anybody from the department, from the Gauteng Department of Health, contacted you since Virginia passed away?
no, in fact, I'm the one who sent Dr. Manamela an email to say to her that my sister had died.
And what was her response?
Well, it was very cold. I don't even remember what she said, but I remember I actually responded to her saying, you know what, she can keep her condolences.
Did the Gauteng department offer to pay for the funeral services?
We got no assistance from the Department of Health, none whatsoever. And that's what we told the Premier as well when he called us to a meeting, I think it was the 5th of December.
2016.
2016. And we actually told him that, you know, now they're coming forward as if they had assisted us, and we had been going through all this by ourselves with no assistance from them.
You say the Premier called you to a meeting on 5 December. Was it just you or were there other family members?
No, he announced at the legislature that he's going to be meeting with families, and we didn't know about that. And suddenly after that, we started getting calls saying we've been invited to meetings. And a lot of us didn't want to attend because we thought it was very arrogant of them to actually tell us that we're going to be meeting when in actual fact they had not even spoken to us about it.
But you did attend the meeting, did you?
Well, I think it was curiosity really, because we wanted to hear what they were going to say.
Where was the meeting?
It was at Khotso House in, I think it's Main Street in Johannesburg.
And at that meeting, did you then get an explanation as to why your family members had to be moved from Life Esidimeni?
No, the way they had structured the meeting, it was just like a government event. And
It was just like what?
It was just a typical government event, you know, where they have banners and they had, you know, people attending. But no answers were given to us. Instead, you know, they were basically saying they're going to offer us services, counseling, and etc., and they were going to hold our hand. But they didn't really understand what was going on.
Sorry, I was distracted for a moment. Did you, at that meeting, receive any offer to pay for the funeral services? And what was the cost of the funeral services?
Sure. I don't know. I don't know. I'd be lying to you.
If you have regard...
A rough estimate?
Probably in the region of about 40.
40. That's 40,000.
40,000, yeah.
If you may pull out file 3.
Thank you.
And if you could turn to page 1111, 1111.
Got it.
There's a letter from section 27, dated 16 September 2016,
Yes.
in which section 27 says they act for you. And it's a follow-up request relating to your initial request for a judicial inquest.
Yes.
Were you informed of any response from the police?
No.
That letter was addressed to the Atteridgeville police.
Yes.
Can you turn to page 1117?
Yes. I've got it.
This is a letter, again from Section 27, dated 20 September 2016, 4 days after the first letter. And in paragraph 3, it says, since October 2015, all of our clients have been involved in efforts to ensure the protection of rights of mental health care users. And it's quite a long letter, again, urging a response, requesting a response. The letter is addressed this time to the Minister of Police, the Deputy Minister of Police, the National Commissioner of Police, the Gauteng Provincial Commissioner of Police, the Brigadier stationed at Attridgeville, and Captain Mwanza, also stationed at Attridgeville Police Station. Are you aware of any response from any of these ministers and deputy ministers and police officers and commissioners?
No response, no.
And you say that you've never received the post-mortem report?
No.
I am aware that the post-mortem reports have been requested by your attorneys, and not only in relation to Virginia's post-mortem, but others, and those are still outstanding.
Did you tell the Premier about all these efforts
Well,
when you met in December? Did you say to him, we've written to Commissioner of Police, to the Minister of Police, and who else in Attridgeville, the Brigadier and the Captain and in all their flurry, and you have had nothing?
in that meeting, we actually told him exactly what had been going on. Because it wasn't just me that stood up, all the families that were there stood up and told of their ordeal. And
Your letter speaks about these deaths at Precious Angel, and all the requests about post-mortems and investigation. Subsequent 2 letters do the same, and nothing came back. What did the Premier say?
Wow, he really didn't have any answers. But then, yeah.
But you still had to hold hands and sing
No, we actually didn't.
hymns and things?
No, I don't. That day, I think Premier realized the extent of the pain because we didn't spare our feelings in that meeting. I think for the first time, he actually understood for the first time, wow, that we got to tell him just how bad it was.
And how many of you were there representing families?
I think there was about 20 of us that were there, if I'm not mistaken.
In February 2017, there was a healing ceremony that was held for the families. Did you attend the healing ceremony?
The healing ceremony was actually as a direct request in that meeting that we had with the Premier on the 5th. So I requested, because I actually said to them that they need to understand, they need to bring the officials responsible to come and sit and listen to what had happened or what was going on. And yes, I did attend.
Where was the healing ceremony?
It was at Freedom Park in Pretoria.
And did the Gauteng Department of Health officials attend?
Some of them did.
Who attended?
It was obviously the MEC, the current MEC, and just a few, but there were more people from social development.
So you say the current MEC.
The current MEC, yes.
Was the former MEC present, MEC Mahlangu?
No,
Was Dr. Manamela present?
no,
Was Dr. Celebano present?
no.
Was anybody who was there at the time of the Marathon Project present to hear to hear from the families and to be part of the healing process?
To be honest with you, I think there were just a few junior government officials that were there.
And Mr. Musinogi, was he there?
I'm trying to think. I don't recall.
You don't remember?
No.
But none of the biggies were there, were they?
No, none of the biggies were there, Judge.
And
And the Minister of Health, was he there?
Yes, he was there.
Minister of Health was there.
Yes.
was the Premier there?
Yes, the Premier was there.
And what was your experience of the healing ceremony?
It was traumatizing. It was traumatizing because the stories that the families told of what they had gone through. With, just one trying to find their loved ones, the condition in which they found them, how they had to struggle to just get the bodies released. So it was just so many more of my kind of story in grave detail. So it was very traumatizing.
And what was the response from the officials who were present to the stories of the families?
I think a lot of people were shocked. I think very much the same way as the Premier was shocked from the 5th of December. I think everybody who was in that healing session was shocked just how bad it was.
Was there a pastor or a master of ceremonies presiding?
They had what they call the interdenomination. So you had a couple of other churches that were there. Yeah, the master of ceremony was what's her name? Lillian Dube. Yes.
And what was her response?
She was traumatized. She actually, she said, had she known, she doesn't think she would have actually been there.
Sorry, excuse my ignorance, who's Lillian Dube?
I don't know how to explain who she is. She's an actor. Yes, she's an actor. An actress.
An actress?
Yes. But she's also an ambassador for cancer, breast cancer. Yes.
Oh, I see her, yeah.
And were any other events or meetings held between the department and the families after this healing ceremony?
We've had a lot of meetings as the family committee with the department, with the Premier's office and the Department of Health. Yes.
And what was the purpose of the meetings?
Well, basically to get them to understand that it wasn't just a few people, that everybody, and the extent of the tragedy, and just how families were struggling to get, help. And some of them, because in this marathon project, some family members were sent home. They didn't go to these facilities. So we also had to find ways of either reaching them or just trying to assist where we could. So our role was basically just to tell them, the extent and how bad it was and who needed help and what we could do.
Were you offered counseling by the department?
Look, they've always made counseling available, but we've just never had the time. There was just so much work to be done. Just getting around to counseling was like taking time away from dealing with the matter.
At the time, I'm sorry, Council.
Go ahead,
sorry.
Justice.
At the time, did you yourselves, I'm talking really December 2016, at these healing meetings, did you yourself know the extent of the devastation?
Well, I had been phoning a lot of the family members. We literally had to fight with the department to get the list of family members. And we struggled. We really, really struggled. I had spoken, by then I had spoken to quite a few of the families. So I had an idea, but when we got to the healing session, we just didn't know how bad it was.
Yeah. Then you didn't know whether 60 people, 90, or the 118 that ultimately we got to, and now 143.
Well, we were still working on the 37 that we had heard via the premier, I know, via
So
the
then
MEC.
it was still around 37.
We were still working on the about 37, yeah.
How was the family committee constituted?
Well, from the public meeting that took place in January of 2016, some of us had were requested to put our names down as the representatives of the families at Randfontein. And it turns out that a whole lot of, at the Waverley Centre as well, that happened. So when we met with the department, the representatives met with the department. So it just, I don't know, I think it was just a natural progression that we then became part of the family committee.
You know, after the meeting, which you'll remember Mr. Musinohi also testified about, you know, the Randfontein meeting.
Yes.
Did they come back to you as a committee to say, you know, we've heard your protests, we've nonetheless decided we're going to go ahead?
We actually attended meetings. They called for meetings at one of the offices in Johannesburg. And in those meetings, we actually told them that it felt like what they were doing is they were just basically ticking blocks to say that they were adhering. But those meetings were in no way negotiations or meetings where we could actually change their mind or anything like that.
And these were meetings with the family committee?
It was part of it wasn't with the family committee then, it was more the family representatives.
Family representatives.
Yes.
And did they say there that they're going to go on with the marathon?
Well, basically
project?
they were pushing ahead. There was nothing we would say or do that would actually stop them.
And these meetings were when? Between January and April?
They were between January and March, if I'm not mistaken.
Did the MEC come to any of those meetings?
No, we had. They were headed by or chaired by HOD Dr. Silobani, and Manamela was in all of those days.
And your position was unambiguous. I mean, you were saying to them, don't do it.
Yes. And also the timeline that they gave, they wanted to close the facility in March. It was unrealistic. It was very unrealistic.
Did they tell you what plans had they made to find other places for the patients?
No, they didn't. Instead, what we, as the family representatives, said is that we needed to view the NGOs. They allowed for, I think, 3 NGOs to be viewed. And then after that, they cancelled and no more NGOs were viewed. And then they just pushed ahead.
Do you remember which 3 were viewed?
No, I actually wasn't part of the team, no.
Yes. But the family representatives were quite resolute, as they were in January 2016 in Randfontein.
Nothing had changed, Judge. Nothing had changed.
Yeah. And did you tell the Premier this, that we have been telling your HOD? No, before I get there, Mr. Musinohi says that the MEC was present at the meeting in Randfontein.
No, she
MEC
wasn't.
Mahlangu, she wasn't there.
No, she wasn't.
Were you at any meeting where she was present?
No.
So to you, to the distribution of these patients, I'll use that nasty word, to different NGOs came as a surprise, did it?
Because I actually stopped attending the meetings and I was really angry because I told the family representative that there's nothing we're going to do that's going to change their mind. And I actually just decided, you know what, I'm not going to be part of this anymore. And that's when I just literally shut myself out of this whole process. And then the next thing I got the SMS saying that my sister was being moved. And yes.
Thank you. Counsel?
Mrs. Nxumalo, were you aware of the litigation that took place in December 2015?
I was aware, yeah.
And were you aware of the settlement that was entered into between the parties in that litigation?
I actually found out after the meeting in Randfontein, because I got to meet with Section 27, and they actually had briefed me about that, yes.
So the purpose, were you informed that the purpose of the settlement was to have a meaningful consultation
Yes.
between the department and the families,
Yes.
so that any transfer that took place of the patients would happen in a way that protected their rights and in which they would get an equal or better standard of care?
Yes.
So these meetings that you were attending were during the period of this settlement agreement. It was after the agreement was concluded, and it was when the meaningful consultations were to take place.
Yeah.
Were those meetings to you meaningful consultations?
No. There was no consultation. It was, we are doing this, and this is what we're going to be doing. And no matter how many times we protested or how much or how loud we did, they were just not interested. In fact, Dr. Salabani said that he was called in by the MEC to close this project as soon as possible, to move us with speed.
So was it Dr. Salabano who attended those meetings?
Yes.
Was Dr. Manamela at those meetings?
No.
And you say you conveyed...
No, Dr. Manamela was at the meetings.
She
yes.
was at the meeting?
Yes, she was.
Do you still have file 3 open before you?
Yes.
Can you turn to page 1124?
Got it.
This is a transcript from a meeting at the provincial legislature. If you look at the top of the page where the page number it is, you see that? It's dated 13 September 2016.
Yes.
And at this meeting, the MEC was questioned about the marathon project.
This meeting, you mean at the legislature?
Sorry, at the legislature, at the
provincial legislature.
meeting of the committee, of the portfolio committee.
I see.
About halfway down the page, there's a paragraph that begins, just answering your question. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
That is the MEC speaking at this point, MEC Mahlangu. And she says, just answering your question, specifically, out of all the 122 NGOs that have been providing health care, mental health to patients throughout the years, and only 8 new NGOs that we are talking about, we only received 1 complaint from 1 NGO that was not registered properly, operating at the Cullinan Rehab Center, and that NGO has finally been dismissed. So this is 13 September 2016. This is after the meetings that were meant to be consultations with the department took place. This was after those meetings in which you say you raised concerns. But this paragraph suggests that there was only 1 concern raised in relation to 1 NGO. How do you explain that, if you can?
For me, this is just what the department had been doing all along, trying to create an impression that everything was fine and that NGOs were in place.
If you turn over the page to page 1125.
Sorry, Counsel. Would the witness know what the MEC meant when she says they went to court and everywhere else, and we have concluded our work on them? What does she mean by that? Do you know? It's a pretty arrogant statement, isn't it?
Justice, my understanding is this was the litigation in relation to the closure of Siabadinga.
I see. That refers to Siabadinga. They went to court means those who have finally had been dismissed. I see. That does help. Thank you.
On page 1125, it's still the transcript of the same provincial meeting of the provincial legislature. In the second paragraph, MEC Mahlangu says, yes, indeed, 36 patients have died in the period, and the families have been engaged. The majority of them do not even have families, and the department is working to give them a dignified funeral. We are working with all NGOs, and I will continue to meet with them frequently to understand the challenges and also to further give them empowerment on those, I suppose, those challenges or something. So there's quite a lot in this paragraph. For one, at this point, the MEC says 36 patients have died, which we later learned through the Ombuds report to be incorrect.
Yeah.
Is it true that, in your understanding, having been involved in the meetings, again, I remind you, this is September 2016, you had already been engaging with the department for some time before that. You attended meetings of the families, the family committee representatives, and the department. Is it your understanding, with all of that experience and knowledge, that the majority of the family, of the patients did not have families?
No, that's not true. And I think it was just the department's way of actually trying to, I suppose, justify why nothing had been done. Because if they can't reach the families, it means they really can't do anything.
And are you aware, through your meetings with the other families, whether there were these dignified funerals that took place of patients who died?
That entire paragraph is a lie. And I think everybody here can testify to that.
The MEC also says that she will continue to, well, here she says she will continue to work with the NGOs, that paragraph that we've just looked at. But if you look at page 1126, in the middle of the second paragraph, the MEC says we will continue to work with the families. Did the MEC meet with you?
No.
Are you aware of whether the MEC met with any other family members?
No.
Mrs. Khumalo, can you explain to us what the impact of the loss of Virginia has been on you and your family?
Virginia had a daughter who I had, who I'd been living with. And just this past weekend, we actually we buried her. She wasn't sick. She just collapsed the first day of arbitration, and she died.
I'm sorry I have to say that again.
My sister's daughter passed away on the 9th of October, and she wasn't sick, Judge.
How old was she?
In fact, the 8th of October, which was a Sunday, was the 21st, and the very next day she died. And
did she attend the arbitration on the 9th? You say it was the first day of the arbitration when she collapsed.
I had asked her to attend with me, but she didn't. She woke up late, so she didn't attend it. But I kind of figured she wasn't going to attend it. So I actually had to rush out of the hearings to go and attend to this situation.
And what was the cause? First of all, what was your niece's name?
Shanice.
Shanice Makapela.
Yes.
And what was the cause of death?
Well, we asked for a post-mortem because it was just sudden. But they said that it was natural. So we're waiting for the post-mortem report.
But what was the cause? Was it a cardiac arrest?
We don't know yet. We don't know. They just said to us it's natural, and then the report will actually explain what had happened. But when we spoke to the doctor, he couldn't explain what had happened to her.
What was her health the day before, on the 8th October?
She had flu the week before, and she was taking medication for flu, but it wasn't serious. It was just coughing but nothing serious.
How did Shanice react to the news of the death of her mother?
She was devastated. She and her mom were very close. I think the only time they got separated was when she had to be in a facility. That was literally the first time that they had actually been apart. So it was very devastating, and I also didn't realize the extent of it, because all I could do was just to try and make her comfortable and, just keep her informed about what was happening and how everything was going. So I thought if I inform her about, how far we're getting with this whole arbitration process, then, it would give her comfort that something is being done, so that her mom's death is not in vain. But I suppose it was a bit too much for her.
How did Shanice react when you couldn't find her mother in the period of time when you did not know in which NGO she was placed?
Between me and her, we actually made the calls. Every single day we would actually make the call and would, write down what happened or whatever. And she didn't have a reaction. It was almost like she was numb. But she knew that we needed to find her. And I suppose that's what we were focusing on at that time.
If you were to be offered counseling by the department, would you take up that offer?
To be honest with you, I've been working with SADC, and they've assisted us with counseling.
SADC, the
Yes.
Depression and Anxiety Group.
Yes.
And did your niece have children of her own?
No, she was only 21.
Huh?
She had just turned 21.
Or just 10, 21?
Yes.
Is there anything else you would like to say about this experience and its impact on you? And is there anything else you would like to say to the government as we try to seek redress for the families?
It's been a very long road. Painful, very long road. Our understanding that when we started the arbitration process that we were going to get answers. But all the officials, your Daphne Ngube, even your Ethel, they have not offered any answers. And that makes me angry. We haven't received, in fact, what they were doing rather is that they were protecting themselves. They haven't offered any answers. It's 2 weeks, we're in the 3rd week now. We are exactly where we were when we started the process. And that has not offered us any comfort. I was hoping that Ethel would not come in here and cry her crocodile tears and rather say what had happened to my sister and why she lied about the date of death. Not to come and cry and feel sorry for herself. Mosenoche, he hasn't said anything. He was a project leader. He did not say anything. So that makes me really, really angry. Because I am nowhere near where I was when we started the process. I don't have any answers. And I still don't have my post-mortem, so I don't even know what happened to my sister. So how is this process helping me right now? It's not. So this process is supposed to start the healing process, but it's not. And that's what I would like to say.
Are there any other government officials that you would like to hear from?
Obviously, we want to hear from Dr. Manamela. We also want to hear from Gadani Mahlangu. She needs to come and testify. She needs to come and tell us what happened. She needs to come and tell us what happened. She signed off on all of this as the MEC and the HOD as well. They need to tell us what they were thinking. Even with us warning them and protesting, we did everything to tell them that they shouldn't. But they went ahead anyway.
How do we, you think, get rock bottom to how exactly each of the patients died?
Well,
For
Judge,
instance, how do we come to know what killed your sister? I
well,
share your concern.
I think for me, if the postmortems can be made available, that's the first thing, because I'd like to know what happened to my sister. But also, people like Ethel Ncube need to stop telling us what they think we need to hear, and rather tell us that they were not able to feed the families, or they were not able to feed the patients, or tell us what happened. Because she took on so many patients and she didn't have the facility, nor did she have the staff to do so. So obviously she couldn't feed those people. She probably didn't even wash them.
And you had every one of them, we have a few more coming, heads of NGOs, I've been told. But none of them has said to us, this is how the people under my care died.
Yes.
If anything, they've denied
They've been,
that the conditions could have led to their death.
yes.
How do you say we extract that from them?
They need to tell the truth, Judge. They just need to be honest. I think for them, they petrified that they're going to go to jail. So if they tell, that means they're admitting. So they're obviously not going to admit that they literally took part in the death of people.
Yeah.
So they're running away from saying, I did this, I couldn't feed them this day, and so died. They're not going to say that.
Yeah, so we have the people who, we've had people who were actually in charge of the deceased, but virtually every one of them denied that the conditions that they had created led to the deaths. And you say, why do you think they do that?
I don't know.
They avoid going to jail, you say.
That's true, Judge.
And you add that that doesn't help with the
It doesn't help.
closure.
It doesn't help because none of us here have actually heard what had happened. None of us heard what had happened.
Yeah. We're yet to know how people died at Takalani, right? Or at Precious Angels, or at Siabadinga. How do you say we come to get to those exact deaths?
I suppose the only way would be to offer them amnesty. That would probably be the only thing that would actually get them to say something. Because, Judge, I think it's a natural reaction. If you don't want to go to jail, you're not going to tell the truth. Not if it's going to get you in jail, you're not. And I think that's basically how they're reacting.
You're really saying all of the NGOs who have come before us, leaders of the NGOs who have come before us so far, have been untruthful.
I can tell you of the Ethel Ncube, and I can tell you that everything she said was a lie. I can guarantee you that. the others, I'm sure if you ask the family members whose loved ones were at those NGOs, they'd also tell you the truth about the others. You see, even if you were to offer them amnesty, Judge, they must never ever be allowed to run an NGO again.
Why do you think Ethel Nube agreed to take all of these patients onto her premises? You remember how many times I asked her that? Now I ask you, what do you think? It's a matter of hindsight.
Judge, from what I've learned through this process is that this has been going on for a while. In fact, I think one of the NGO owners referred to this process as their commodities, the patients as their commodities. So that moving from patients from these facilities to NGOs, it's a business. It was not the fact that they were looking after these loved ones. It was a transaction. So it was never about the patient. It was about how many they could take and I suppose what they could get for them. But it was never about the patients.
And for the government, what was it about? What was the government, do you think, was busy doing?
They were saving costs because they were trying to cut down the numbers at life. Because I think they paid per patient, if I'm not mistaken. So if they could cut down the numbers at life, they would save.
Well, they didn't cut down the numbers, they shut it down, didn't they? They got everybody, every single one of the patients there out.
Out, yes.
What do you say to the argument that modern practice is to deinstitutionalize? Do you deinstitutionalize when you take somebody from life as a demeni to another smaller, poorer, ill-managed institution, e.g. called Precious Angel or Takalani?
That is not, I don't think that's what the policy intended. Because it's supposed to move patients to a equally or a similar environment where there is care, where there is professionals, and also they are able to rehabilitate. But what they did with the patients now, it's literally send them to the slaughterhouse. They literally slaughtered our families because they knew that they would not survive in those environment. I mean, Precious Angels, the house where my sister was kept or where her body was collected by the EMS, that is, she was on a wheelchair. She would not be able to access that house. So it was not designed to have patients, let alone patients with mental illness. So I don't think when they sent the patients to those facilities, it was for the betterment of the patients at all.
And in effect, it was from one institution to another institution, just a poorer and ill-equipped institution.
Yes.
Do you think people like Ethel Nube wanted to make money or saw an opportunity to make money?
Judge, what I found out in this process about Ethel is that Ethel had been friends with some government officials. She seems to have relations with government officials. In fact, what we found out later on is that the house in Danville and Attridgeville, if I'm not mistaken, apparently it's either owned by a government official. So that's why they were able to give her patients to those two facilities. So she had been doing this for a while.
Do you suggest that she might have had a corrupt relationship with a state official?
I believe so.
Why do you believe so?
Because when I asked my sister, I sent Dorothy from Anchor a message about, what had happened to my sister. And she responded on SMS saying, I think it was WhatsApp, not SMS, something like that. She said that my sister was moved to Precious Angels because MEC had actually said that they must be moved to Precious Angels. So obviously, if the MEC could recognize Precious Angels, it simply means that there must be some kind of known or some relation that actually allowed that to happen.
What else do you think I should do to get to the bottom of the truth?
I don't know. I don't know, Judge. I honestly don't know. I think the option of amnesty is probably something to consider, but amnesty without with them never, ever running NGOs again, or even come close to running NGOs. Anything that's got to do with other people, looking after people, they must never be allowed that. In fact, they must be blacklisted.
Well, amnesty would mean that they would never be charged criminally. Is that what you mean?
I don't know, but I would like to get the answers. But I also want them charged. So how do we do that? It's like a catch-22. You know, I want them to be charged. I want them to tell the truth. But which is more important? I suppose it's something that the families need to answer.
It's a competition between truth and justice.
Basically, yes.
Counsel.
Justice Moseneke, if I may just ask one further question arising from your exchange with Justice Moseneke now. You say that Ethel had friends, was friends with government officials, and that one of them owned the house in Danville. Do you know the name of that government official?
I wish I knew. I really wish I knew. No, I don't. I don't.
I suppose we could easily establish that.
Yes.
Justice Moseneke, that concludes the evidence in chief. It's past the time for adjournment.
Yes. We
But
started a little late, so
Yes.
it is, and it was necessary to go through this witness in this way. As you know by now, you're going to be asked further questions by the other counsel, and followed by a re-examination by the counsel who called you to give evidence. It is a 11:45. We'll resume at 12:15. We are adjourned.